Kick him out, Coaching SOS, and change the name.
Self-sufficient.
And block.
I'm just gonna Coaching SOS with Lisa Hopper. And every live will be, unfortunately, Sam can't join us this evening.
Don't know what's happened to Sam. It's just gone AWOL.
It's just so unreliable these days.
Oh, we're live. Hello.
Oh, we're live. I was just talking about booting Sam out of the group. He did that on purpose, so he has it on camera, I reckon.
Oh, it's totally recorded. Absolutely. I need to safeguard myself. I heard about you.
Oh, thanks. Well, no news is good news, or what was the no bad press is all good press, something like that.
Well, there's no such thing as bad was it bad press? That's it. No such thing as bad press.
That's it.
I don't know about that, man. Right. Let's just. So hi guys. We are organising ourselves slowly but surely.
I'm organised. I don't know what are you doing right now?
I'm doing all the work.
Okay.
Right, I'm just making sure if anyone's logged in or not. Just you know.
You're like the chef in the kitchen, and I'll be the hostess. Good evening, everybody.
I'm like the sous chef.
Can you chop some vegetables, please?
Oh, that's what my wife calls me when she's in the kitchen doing the cooking. She calls me sous chef.
Is she the head chef?
Well, definitely, even when I'm cooking. No doubt.
Who's the dishwasher?
The dishwasher.
Okay, you have one. Just checking.
Yeah, hell yeah.
The dishwasher. Listen, there's no silly question in coaching. Tonight's subject is going to be about there's no silly questions.
I have to think of one now. So anyway, we were talking about, what we're going to talk about is comparisonitis. Do you compare yourself with other people? And just have a discussion about it, really. That's as far as we've got with that, I think. But an important topic. And also, how much should we charge? So it's a bit of a double whammy this evening, really. And I think it'd just be really interesting to open up a discussion about those things. So guys, if you're watching this and you've got something that you'd really love to share, please do, because we'd love to get into the sort of the crux of this, because this stuff can really hold people back.
Yeah. Should I have something?
Yeah, I completely run out of things to say, so
okay,
over to you.
I'll fill in so you think of something else. Because actually we were talking earlier this week, and we were like, we're going to talk about comparisonitis, which I don't know if that's a word or not, but that's the word we're using. And I've had a few conversations with people around comparisonitis recently, and know how much that affected me in those early days, and how different it feels today when I compare myself to other people. And the conversation that Sam and I were having earlier this week was around actually it was around environments, like really setting yourself up in the right environment. Because with the conversation we had around expectations, and I remember saying I've sat with expectations and I can't see a good reason to have one. And it was almost getting to that stage with that comparing myself, because I wasn't comparing myself for the right reasons. Like I was comparing myself to people who, the likes of Rich Lippin and the likes of Steve Chandler and Steve Haddison. So it's like automatically I'm going to feel pretty shit when I'm up against those guys who've been doing this for many, many, many years. And what I found when I was doing that kind of comparing was just a lot of procrastination, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of I need to learn more, I need to train more, I need to watch more demonstrations, I need to, it was like I was really holding back from getting into coaching conversations, because I felt like by comparing myself to these guys, like I'm not ready yet. So I noticed that was happening, and I actually caught sight of that pretty early on and nipped it in the bud. And then I started looking at them for inspiration instead. And I could see so often with people who were comparing themselves, especially if you go to a coaching school. And then I know a lot of coaching schools have communities afterwards where people stay connected as a support group and have reunions and things. And a lot of the conversation in that is around it's so hard to create clients. And what I found was one of two things. So some people would be in those groups going, oh my God, they're doing so much better than me. Like those people there, they're just they seem to be creating clients, they're charging more money than me, like they just seem to be doing so much better and so much more, they have more time to do it, and almost like that's just not an inspiring energy to be in at all. So that was one thing that I see happens. And then the other thing is you compare yourself to people who are really struggling. But what you're doing is you're creating an environment for yourself where you're surrounded by people who are finding it difficult to find clients. And then you feed off that energy as well. So even if you were doing okay, when you surround yourself with people telling you it's so hard to find clients, you start to believe that that's true.
Yeah.
And so what Sam and I were talking about when I started coaching, this is probably the reason why I nipped this comparisonitis in the bud pretty quickly, was I chose not to be in those environments where the conversations were, this is really difficult, how do I do it, why is it not working? I chose to be in those environments where there are people out there who are really successful with this. And I'm going to get super curious about what it is that they've been doing, because they clearly have something that works. So I want to connect with those coaches, and I want that to be my peer group. So that's what I did. I invested in working with the UK's highest paid life coach, and he connected me with several of his like associate coaches, and I could see what they were doing. And I just got really curious. I studied them, I kind of watched them, and I could see what it was that they were doing. And I could see that they were doing really well. It's like I did, the statistic is something like 80% of coaches don't make it and 20% do. So instead of going, oh, I'm going to join the 80% because I feel comfortable knowing that everyone's kind of doing as rubbish as me, it's like I'm not going to join that group and feed my subconscious with this message that this is really hard and it's not going to, and you know, most of us fail. And I got into an environment where it was feeding my subconscious with, you can do this. Yeah. There is nothing special about me. I just knew how to do it. I got the right support and I just kept on doing it.
Yeah.
So it's, no, I just want to, I would ask everyone who watches this, like, where do you fit? Are you comparing yourself and feeling like you're not good enough? Like it's not helping you move forward. It's holding you back. And if you are, like, there is a way to switch that. Like if you're really attached to comparing yourself with people, there's a way of making that a healthier relationship.
Yeah.
That was kind of what came up for me, and I guess it feeds into what we were talking about the money piece, like how much do I charge? Because that is one of the things people get really caught up on. Like how much do you charge? Oh God, they're charging like 5K for 3 months, and I'm only charging £500 for 3 months. Like, or you know, they're doing programs, and I'm just doing one-offs. So it's. I think that's a conversation that we can kind of elaborate on. It is definitely something that I know a lot of people compare themselves to others about, like your fee. So I don't know, what do you want to say about that, or any of that?
No, I've got loads to say actually. I think that when it comes to the thing that came up to me when you were talking, which I didn't expect, and I'm hoping I can explain it properly, but we were sort of, when you're comparing yourself with someone, when you're looking at a physical thing, a material thing, like a coaching business or money or cars or, you know, the coach itself, what we're looking at is a measure, because you're seeing more experience, you're seeing more money, you're seeing all that sort of stuff. But I think it's super important to remember that what you're seeing is a symptom. It's a symptom of what's been created and from the place it was created from. And so when you look at these coaches, for example, when I look at them now, because I had the same experience, but when I look at them now, what I see is somebody just in service, like super in service. Like Steve Hardizan, I messaged him the other day and he messaged me back. And we had a conversation. And I knew it was him because of the way he was talking to me. And so what you're looking at it's not greatness. It's created from greatness. And that for me was kind of like the end of comparing myself, because it's like, well, where's this greatness in me and what's going to be created as a result of that? And so now it's just like, I just get my head down and just get out there and do my thing. And I think it's also really helpful to ask ourselves sometimes, because what we're talking about, comparing yourself is kind of fear, isn't it? Well, it's a form of fear, or it is fear, just labeled as something, right? I think that's a really good indicator of what's going on for us. Like, feelings are really good indicators. And just checking in with that sometimes, I think, is like we've talked about before, is this useful? Like, and sometimes it actually is, because you asked me a question yesterday and you said, how is it for you in the online world? And I said, you know what? Sometimes I get pretty sucked into it, because online, for every one coach who's succeeding, there's like 100 people that are really struggling to create. And so it's very easy to get caught up in all of that. And so I think for me, it's coming back to that, is it useful piece again? Just checking in with that. And it is really useful in terms of actually that feeling is just pointing me to the fact that I'm looking in the wrong place. So to step back, get back to basics. What is the one thing I can do today to create a client? Yeah. And I've had already this week 4 conversations, or 4 initial consultations. I've got 16 of the things, which I'm loving it so far, because there's such great sessions with these guys. It's just brilliant. And that feeling of, what is it that woman said today? I think she's in this group, actually. She is. She'll know who it is. And there's just this sense of relief that it's like, I can do this my way. I don't have to keep looking out there and trying to create what they've created. It's like, what if I just show up to myself and see what's created? Like, it's a byproduct. It's not an end goal. Like, if we live in service, we create whatever comes our way, right? And that's what I love about this. It's a constant kind of discovery, rather than just trying to get to a fucking destination all the time, which is, it's foolhardy, because it takes us away from what we are. So I know that's a little bit tangentitis. Is that a word?
Absolutely, itis.
Yes, I love it. Making up a wordy itis, I like it. And it just felt like it was an important thing to say, just to get really real on this, because it's a good pointer, but it just means that if you're looking at that, also you're looking in the wrong place for where we're trying to get to, in my opinion. Yeah.
And just on what you said about, is it helpful or not, as well, it's really being honest with yourself around if it's helpful. I know from my NLP days, we talked about like a primary gain, a secondary gain, whatever. And then I hear this a lot with people, where you say, oh, is that helpful? And they're like, yeah, because.
Yeah.
And there's no pause, there's no time to actually think, is this helpful? It's a reactive. Yeah, it is. It's almost like they don't see it probably. They just truly believe, yeah, it's helpful because. And it's like, oh, well, hang on. Take a step back and see, is that really helpful? Like, just stop. If you're reacting really quickly to something, just take a step back and go, oh, was that more of a defensive, yeah, it's helpful, then I'm not being honest with myself, or not.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so resonant of my experience with that, because actually that feeling, that fear, I'm yet to find it unhelpful, actually, because it's easy to sort of say, well, of course it's not helpful. I'm comparing and it's keeping me stuck, but it's pointing us to the reason as to why you're stuck. So sometimes it's really helpful.
So you're talking about the feeling that's helpful.
Yeah. But also the practicality of it is like, there's so much learning in it. When you sit and because like, you'll know, when you sit and explore that, like I did today with this client, it's like, is this helpful? She's like, well, no. So, well, let's explore that. Were you open to that? And once we'd explored it, there was so much to learn, but we'd never turned and actually had a look at what we were experiencing. It's kind of just, oh, of course it's not helpful. It really is helpful, because it shows us so much about what we believe and how we see things. So that's just what I thought, just adding a little bit of a tangentitis in there.
Yeah, no, I'm all up for the tangentitis. I actually was thinking in my head of the other way. Like I've had clients where I've asked, is it helpful, and they're always like, yeah, it's helpful, because I'm going to really go veering off now, but I know when I was doing NLP that one of the examples was about, the leader was talking about how much she loved being one of the people who did all their Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve. And yeah, but she was like, I got curious as to why I loved being one of the people who did their shopping on Christmas Eve, because really, think about it, it was quite stressful. Everyone got shit presents. And actually, as a person, I love giving. Like, I love giving, and I want to see my niece and nephew smile and watch them open their presents. And actually, I was having totally the opposite experience, because I was like, oh shit. Like, almost, can I swap the label on that one? So yeah, so she's like, so what is it that keeps me doing that? There must be like a secondary gain that I'm getting from it. And so she was adamant that it was helpful, and her secondary gain was part of a community, like being part of this community of people who are like, we hate those organized people that do their Christmas shopping in January sales, like screw them. And it was like you got this real buzz from being part of this little community of like, not haters, but, you know, just having something to moan about. And, you know, be proud, like, to be the one that's running around the shops. Oh, I'm so laid back. I'm so relaxed. I'm so casual.
But they're stressed as hell.
But they're actually stressed. So it's like, it's that I was probably pointing to. So I think we were maybe talking about a slightly different thing. And so, yeah, when I ask the question, is it helpful? If someone answers really quickly, yeah, it's helpful. It's like, oh, tell me why it's helpful. And usually it's fun to explore that as well. And they start to see, oh, yeah, it's really not that helpful. And maybe they need to replace, you know, what it was. So she was talking about, I needed to replace what I was getting from being part of that community with something else, because I didn't want to give that up, because that gave me something. So it was for her, she felt like she needed to replace it with something else, which now I don't really go down the NLP route as much. And now I'd probably challenge if that belief is true. But that's a whole different conversation.
It is, but it does point to two things in coaching which are really important, I think, which is not making assumptions and being curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, well, actually, is it? You know, and then trying to just really exploring that, so you definitely know.
Yeah, assumptions are everywhere. Everywhere.
Assumptionitis, mate.
Assumptionitis. I have a client with big time assumptionitis right now. It's so fun to just mess with his head. I don't know if he finds it fun, but I do.
Haven't seen him since I last.
Yeah, it's funny. I need to get back in touch. I don't know where he's gone. I don't know, do you have any more to say on
I've got a couple of bits down, but do you know, I don't really. I think it just keeping it just, again, it reminds me of these conversations I'm having with these coaches, is just to keep it simple. Just bring it right back and keep it simple. If you're finding yourself in that space, you know, bring it right back and back to what you were doing, you know, serving the next person, basically. Yeah.
Just getting that self-awareness for me is the first step. Like really looking at what is it that I'm doing? Is it helping me? If not, let's take a fresh look at it, because it might still be helpful, but in a very different lens. Should we talk about the money?
Yeah, man, this would be an interesting one, actually, because this, obviously, you said this like a minute before we went live, which I think is perfect.
Client astonishment, coach astonishment.
Shit. Panic-itis, mate. No, I'm all over it.
Do you want me to start then and give you some thinking time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over to you.
I think that this really comes with a caveat of and I'm aware that I'm speaking to a group, and there will be people within this group at different stages in their journey. And I know for me, when I first started coaching, in order to feel confident about a proposal, I wanted to have a really clear idea in my head of what that program looked like. And so if I go right back to the beginning, for me, it was a 3-month program, and it was, we meet every fortnight and we do 1-hour sessions, and it was £300. So that was my first ever program. And within that, I offered support in between sessions as well via text messages. So I was very much, say again?
Can I have one of those?
One of what? One of my programs?
Yeah, 300 quid, 12 weeks.
Sure, why not? Why not? I'll do it. Well,
let's all have one.
Right, calm yourself down. Suddenly my calendar has become double booked.
Shit, can't pay my bills.
But actually that is a really good point, and I'll probably come back to that if I can remember at the end. But I wanted to be really clear in my head, like that's what I was, because I didn't want to be trying to like do any calculations or figure out. I wanted to be present with my client and just know and practice, this is what it is if you want to work with me. And if it was a no, it was just get curious, see if there's objections in there that we can work through. And if it was still a no, it's like, okay, I respect that, and put them in the not yet folder. And now, because I'm in such a different place, and I dropped all the assumptions of how you need to speak or how you need to look to be professional. So, it's like I have a client and I do a consultation and I bespoke all of my programs. And so I don't have a ton of like fast maths going on in my head. It's like, oh, I think, working together for 4 months might be really helpful. And I'd love to do 75-minute sessions with you every week. Like, how does that sound? I have no idea what that would cost. Because I would have just made up that program from listening to what it was that I would think would serve them. But I know roughly what my, I never use the word hourly phrase, but I'm gonna just in this context because it'll help me describe what I'm talking about. But it's like I have an idea of what, if I was to break down my coaching time, then I know what my hourly rate is, if you like. And so I just get my calculator out and I'm like, so to do this, it would be that. And I'm really comfortable with doing that right now.
Yeah. Because
of the space that I'm coming from. And then again, it might be a no, we explore objections, or it might just be a yeah. Like I've had somebody go, oh, that's cheap. I was expecting it to be more than that. And I was like, damn.
What did I say? 3? No, I said 30.
Yeah, you misheard me. So this really does come with this caveat of like where you are and what you're comfortable with doing. Not comfortable playing small, just comfortable, like where you are in your journey. But I read an article by Melissa Ford once, and she said something about like be a working coach first, and that was the best advice, because what she's essentially saying there is if your calendar's not full, why are you holding out for the big bucks? Like get coaching, get creative with your proposals, like get creative with your programs, but get coaching. And don't do it so quickly. Don't do it out of fear. So it's like, to work with me for 6 months, it's 5K, but maybe we can do it for 4. Like it's not that. It's like, to work with me for 6 months, it's 5K. Like, how does that sound? And then if they're like, no, my God, that's like so much more than I was thinking. It's like, oh well, like what were you thinking? Like give me an indication of where your budget's at for this. And then if there's a way of working together, I'll find it. But it might not look like the program we talked about. So it might be, instead of doing weekly sessions, we do fortnightly sessions, or we do a session every 3 weeks, and I do a 5-minute call with you every, every week as a check-in. It might be that I do, why don't you come along to some workshops that I'm doing? We can do quarterly workshops, come along to those. But I'm not like, oh, they can't afford 5K, so off you go into the abyss.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the confidence to do it when I started. And where I was in my journey, that was the right decision for me to make. I just wanted to get really clear and comfortable. But you know, when my prices did do that, to be honest, like it wasn't at 300 for long at all, even though I'm about to go back to 300 for Sam. But it's like I wasn't at that for long. It went up to 500 and then it just went like that. And that just really came from the confidence of being in coaching conversations and seeing the results.
Yeah.
It's like you see the impact that you have when you work with people through a period of time. You really can create an impact there. And your fee can really reflect that. But I never get to the stage where I have like a ton of space in my diary and I'm hanging out for the big bucks, ever. Because that's not, that too much time to think is not healthy for me. Like I'm not good in that space. So I know at the Litvin event, I went to San Diego in October, and at the Litvin event, he mentioned about this, and he said, you know, when he was like kind of comparing himself to Steve, and he's going, I was hanging out for the 20K a year clients, and I wasn't going to do any less than that. And Steve was plodding along going, oh, you can't do like a 60K apprenticeship. Well, let's do a 5K 3 months. How does that sound? And I'm making up these figures, by the way, but you get the
I might give him a ring.
Yeah. You get the point. I want to find a Steve. All the people that are watching this will be calling him up. I want to cut.
I'll give you 300 quid back.
I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. So he was just kind of making sure he was working.
Yeah.
And he wasn't hanging out being like a snob about it. Like, I'm only going to work with these clients for this money. He was finding ways to serve and help people. And Rich quickly saw that too. And you'll see from his portfolio that he has now. He has a real range of stuff that are different accessible price points for people.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of talking then. You've had some space now.
It was really good. I think you've kind of summed it all up, to be honest. I mean, because I don't know, I guess we've come at this from slightly different places, like we all do in coaching. And I kind of just basically got really messy. And if there is a mistake to have been made in the coaching practice, of building of a coaching practice, I have definitely made it. And one of them was that, you know, I kind of started off at, I think my original fees were like $1,500 for 3 months, something like that. It was like every week for like 2 hours. And I loved it because I filled my diary fairly quickly. And I started off like that because I had my personal training fees, weren't too far off that when I was personal training. So, and then I joined the program that me and you were part of, which was great. And I started creating some more higher paying clients, and soon like went like this, right? And then I fell into that trap of, well, I've created 1 or 2 of these, you know, maybe half a dozen sort of 5-figure clients. You start thinking, I could do this permanently. And then you start waiting, and then all of a sudden your diary gets quieter. Your money starts going down, and you're thinking, but I can't. It's like going backwards coaching people like that. That's how it felt. And now I make myself cringe thinking about it. It wasn't even that long ago. It was about 18 months ago. And then it really struck me that actually that money, that value, is only representative in the way I show up. And it's like, well, who can I coach today, right? And it's like, I was just like coaching everybody, like literally everybody. And then I started to create clients, and I'd get really creative with what I was charging. Even though I still have them, I have my set fees and they range. It's like, like you, I have that honest conversation, and I have an idea going into that conversation whether I'm going to propose to them or not, or propose working together or not. But when it comes down to it, it's like, how does that sound to you? And sometimes it's like, perfect, let's do it. And once or twice it's been, oh, that's cheap enough. Okay, no. But, and then it works the other way as well. It's like, oh, I'd love to, it's just too much for me. And that happened today. I was telling you just before I got on this call. And this person just wanted to work with me for ages, and she's been in my world for a long time. we've spoken, and actually she was on a fitness retreat I was on, and we had a really amazing conversation. She just rang me up. She's like, I just really want to work with you. How can we make it possible? And we got down, and I was so honest with each other. And I just said, look, this is what I want to earn for a session. And this is what I recommend. And I really want you to be part of my group program because I think you'd be perfect for it. So I'm actually going to gift that to you because I just really wanted you to be part of it. And she was just so bowled over and so happy with it. And it was really edgy for her because it's still a lot of money for her. It's a lot of money for anybody. But she was like, yeah, let's do this. And it feels great because I've got another client.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in it, isn't it? Like, it's made up, like it's completely made up, like fees and how much we're worth essentially is completely made up. But you do find your way. And it's like anything else, is don't be afraid to get it wrong or have those times where it gets a bit icky and you're like, oh God, that's a bit awkward, or that's all right. It's just learning, man. Don't be afraid of it. That's my advice.
Yeah, it's great advice. It's great advice.
Of course, great person.
You'll have even better advice in 12 weeks' time when I'm finished with you.
Don't do it, guys. It wasn't worth a free request. Worth so much more.
I've said in my own group. I'm done.
There's some really good stuff there.
Yeah, I feel like this is a topic that we could just talk about for hours. Like the money piece. It's so I don't know what the right word is. Maybe I'll make one up. It's so pressing on people's minds sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
and there is a real fear around it, and the real question marks. What do I charge? And the truth is, like, I've always known if the figure feels icky, it's icky because it's a little bit edgy, but I know that I'm gonna provide. I'm gonna show up like that, and I know it feels icky when I'm just like. That I totally undersold myself.
Yeah.
Like, why did I say that? I just balled it.
Yeah.
Why did I say that? And I know it, and I know that it also feels icky when I've offered something else, and I don't do this now, but it's like if I've offered something of a higher fee, knowing that actually they probably don't need that level of support. And I don't do so. I can sense. You know, within that, again, that feeling, it points to something.
Yeah,
I know when it's like a cool icky because it's pushing me out. It's feeling edgy but good, and the other two, which I steer away from now.
Yeah.
And I might, if that happened, it hasn't happened recently at all, but it has happened before. And it's like, if that happened now, what I would do is I would go back to them and say, you know what, I don't want to do this program. I've thought about it, and I don't feel like you need this much support. So how about we do this? And if when we're doing it, you feel like you want to up the amount of support, then let's talk about that. But right now, I don't feel like you need that level of support.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
It's just to me, the word is freedom, like freedom and flexibility to just really sit with your customers and create something that's going to help them.
Yeah, and just relax about money. Have a really cool conversation about it. It's really good fun. It's one thing that people dread the most, I think, but it's actually one of the things I look forward to the most now, because it's just nice and simple and easy. I think another question that's really useful, I think, potentially for coaches to ask themselves, I mean, I ask myself this, whether it's useful, I don't know, but you don't know until you say it, is like when you're upping your prices, or if you've got a price in mind, or you know that you want to offer more. So, you know, when I kind of, I don't know you, but I kind of doubled my prices once or twice, and it's like, oh, that feels edgy. But it's like, how can I know? What do I need to do? What do I need to create in order to know that I'm delivering value that's worth that much? It doesn't have to be stuff. I'm not talking about sending people shed loads of information in a day. It's not what I'm talking about. For me, one of the reflections was, I can show up in these client sessions being more honest. I can serve people more deeply by being more honest. You know, just a bit of self-reflective work. And And that really helped me kind of say, well, actually, this is really great because now I feel good about charging this money. And I know that I'm going to give the value for it. So it's kind of like a bit of self-development kind of stuff going on there too.
Yeah,
It's another opportunity.
I think it's so important to get that out there, though. I really recommend people listen to that again, because you will, in your career, I imagine there will be times when clients don't get the results that they want. And I shared a story with Isla about Isla had made assumptions. The client actually got a hell of a lot from it in that circumstance, but Isla had thought that she hadn't served fully, or she thought she'd served fully, but she felt like she hadn't been able to help them. And there might be circumstances where you have a client who isn't happy with the coaching, like isn't happy with the results. And it's really important to know that you've come from a space of fully showing up for them, because in all honesty, like, I don't know if you're going to get your results. I'm going to do everything I can do in my power to help you get there, but you need to show up too. And especially if anyone ever wants to work with coaches, I see this where, we have sessions and the next session, like the stuff that you agree hasn't been done, or just life kind of gets in the way, and actually the client wants to talk about something else. So it's like, my partner's just broken up with me, or my parents just died, or there's real stuff happens out there, and it might take you off on a tangent. And so you might get to the end of like a 6 month or a year long program, and they haven't got their business to where they wanted it to be fully. But it's about really, I would never want to be in that position knowing I'd not shown up in the way that I needed to show up to get them there. And I don't. So I always show up knowing that if they do everything that we talk about, they can get there. But it's a 50-50 partnership. So I think it's a really brilliant point that you just brought up.
And a good one to end on, maybe.
Yes. So we're going to do our group call next week.
We are. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So hopefully lots of people can be there with us. Bring your questions, bring your challenges, bring your stories, whatever you want to bring.
Yes, and I'll probably post, or one of us will post in the event, just to ask some questions. Maybe just drop a reminder. Let everybody know. But can't wait.
You don't look very excited about it.
It's been a long day.
Never judge how people feel on the inside by how they look on the outside.
Hey, what are you saying? There's a lot going on under this beard. I can't wait.
It's better. That's more like it. All right, cool.
It's going to be epic. Wicked, guys.
We will see you next week.
You will.